I'm not so sure about fascinating, if I'm perfectly honest. Also, I don't have any dogs, which I feel is going to be a disadvantage. All right, let's go. Camouflage is one of those ideas that as soon as you hear about it, it seems completely obvious. Like anyone should have thought of it. After all, animals in nature have been using camouflage since the dawn of time, with many creatures presenting a distinct repeating pattern or fragmented system of shapes or stripes in order to break up their outline. And this is a key point I'm going to keep going back to. Camouflage is not supposed to make things invisible. If it was, it'd be called magic and confined to the world of Harry Potter and reasonably priced mobile phone contracts. The point of camouflage, or to give it its more proper, more descriptive, but often harder to remember name, disruptive pattern material, is to disguise and confuse, and more specifically to disrupt outlines, to break up the shape of an object. Almost all creatures have a system of recognizing animals from their outline, and this pattern recognition can be present from birth. The clever insight of disruptive pattern material is to realize that if you can't hide an object, what you can do is make it present as something else, or several somethings, or disrupt its shape so much it doesn't present to the eye in any intelligible way at all. Now, early battlefields before the firearm were a very different place to the technology-focused theatres of modern war. Warriors lived by codes of honor and status, encounters were hand-to-hand, and concealment had no place. From the Aztec warriors of the Amazon, whose outfits were bright and vibrant, with feathers, jewels, and gold adornments, to the Celtic warriors of the early British peoples, running into battle naked, save for their woad war paint, inspiring awe and fear was the purpose of the warrior's appearance, possibly shock as well in the case of the nudity. And prior to World War I, army uniform was intended to do the exact opposite of conceal. Elaborate and richly coloured uniforms with shining buttons and decorative frogging predominated in large Western armies. The paper was a bad idea, I'm now starting to see. Don't panic, it'll be fine. So uniforms were about prestige. They were about status. They were about the pride of donning that uniform to attract poor recruits, lured in by the luster of those shiny buttons and crisp formal uniforms. And as gunpowder technology developed, suddenly a bright and distinctive uniform was an easy target. Casualties were enormous, and it became obvious that in a machine war, the uniform, like the old tactics, was going to have to change. I had this all on my iPad. My iPad is on my coffee table. Might have not thought that through. But perhaps unsurprisingly, it was artists and not military tacticians who saw the way forward. In 1914, Garanda Skeveler was proposing obscuring field equipment large guns with painted and patterned fabric. And in that same year, Eugene Corbin and the artist Louis Guingot produced a large canvas and 5 uniforms, which so impressed army personnel that the Équipe de Camouflage was formed. And serving artists and painters were actually transferred from combat on the front lines to joining these newly dubbed camoufleurs. And that was their position, which I imagine was probably quite a bonus for them. And I know I'm going to run out of time now because of all the bits I've had to do the changing over. So, one of the most unusual examples of the early adoption of camouflage was the dazzle patterning used on ships in the First World War, which I think you would have seen behind me. If you're thinking to hide something, then those stripes, zigzags, and elaborate crazed angles would look a lot more at home in the work of a cubist or a surrealist painter, rather than on some of the larger ships in Her Majesty's Navy. But what they realised was that breaking up the outline of these ships created a situation where you couldn't tell what was the prow, what was the stern, whether the ship was coming towards you, moving away from you. And therefore, in a featureless ocean where it would have been virtually impossible to hide anything, suddenly you couldn't tell anything useful about these ships at all. Oh, we're so close. A beautiful dress by Jean-Paul Gaultier in the background while I... So with the development of accurate long-range weapons and gunpowder technology, concealment became vital to warfare. The sniper was one of the most feared parts of the army, despite the absolute And it's hard to explain, but the disgust that was held for snipers as a position. Thanks to featuring in a popular video game series that might rhyme with, I don't know, Ball of Beauty or something like that. One of the most popular parts of the sniper's get-up was the Guy suit, which was named after the French game wardens who would actually hide in a long suit of frayed rags in the undergrowth. And that is literally going to be the end of it. I don't do social media. Look into camouflage. It's a fascinating topic. Thank you very much for your time, ladies and gentlemen.